Okay, boleh dicek mic terlebih dahulu? Aman? Okay, all good to go? All right. So we are here for the very last talk show of the day. Are you guys ready? Oh, you're bringing your iPad. Okay, perfect. So we're going to discuss about women and climate change. But before we start, I'm sure everyone wants to know you a little bit. So maybe we can start with a brief introduction.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those who still staying here. I know that the weather it's been very comfortable. Yeah, so my name is Asi Budiati. I'm the team leader of Technical Assistance Facility on Green Team Europe Initiative. Or to be simple, it's EU ASEAN Green Partnership. It's a project fully funded by the European Union for all the 10 ASEAN member states. We are working on climate change, biodiversity, food security, and energy transition. And I'm personally is the key expert on climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're staying cool and not like overheated.
Pleasantly.
So I'm Devi. I am the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Magdalene.co. It's a women-focused publication that covers the news and views through a gender perspective.
All right, perfect. So my first question would be from Devi. As a founder and author of one of the first women-centric media in Indonesia, can you share some examples of how women and girls as well are experiencing the impacts of climate change differently than the rest of the population?
Yeah. So yeah, we all know that actually everyone is or will be impacted by climate change
Yeah.
eventually, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that everyone will experience climate change and climate crisis differently. Of course, this is going to be depending on like their age, where they live, their social status, their economic status, and whatnot. And unfortunately, women and girls, girl child, are some of the most impacted group when it comes to climate crisis, climate change, and how so. There are many ways. I'm gonna go through some of the impact of climate crisis.
Sure.
And see how it impacts women. The first one, of course, we know that there is extreme weather that impact, it causes everything from your usual flooding seasons that becomes worse and worse, your drought season or dry season that, extends, the extreme storms, hurricanes and whatnot. And many women experience this, but especially those whose life or livelihood depends on it. People who are in the areas that are agricultural or coastal areas where they depend on fishery for livelihoods. The extreme weather do not only impact them in terms of how, for example, it causes loss of harvest or overfishing, not overfishing, but decline of fish population. But it also caused them to disrupt their livelihood in terms of fisher women, for example, cannot go to sea because the weather is too dangerous, too risky for them. Also, often because of the fish decline, which can be impacted by extreme weather, but also because of overfishing, of course, they have a lot less income, and that impact like poverty. And and the thing about it in Indonesia, especially in our context, is that a lot of the fishing communities, women contribute a lot, but their contribution is not really recognized in terms of in the system. So like their IDs would not say that they're fishing people, unlike their husband, for example. their state ID will say that they are housewives, so they are not entitled to state support, like social support, such as like bantuan sosial, social assistance, and things like that. So that's one problem. But the other problem is also that a lot of things such as the intrusion of water, saltwater intrusion that affects the quality of water, and in fact makes water clean and drink water becomes scarce. So they have to go farther to find water. And this also impact areas in agriculture areas where there's an extended drought or dry season, where women have to walk a lot farther, like 3-5 kilometers to find drinking water or clean water. And in most households, especially in a patriarchal society, it's women and children that are tasked with the chore of finding water, like everyday consumption. And for girls, this can impact the fact that they may miss schools or school hours or school days because of that. And also, girls and women are impacted because it's longer for them to find drinking water, but it's also make them vulnerable to sexual violence and sexual abuse. And so all of this combined with scarcity of water and of food products or food crops, make the situation a lot more vulnerable for women in areas where there's a lot of where increasing poverty has increased because of the climate crisis. There are increasing numbers of women having to go outside or go overseas to find work, and they end up becoming trafficked, in the people trafficking.
Yeah.
And also, girls are often sold by their families, or getting, the family would marry them young at child's age, because that's the only way the family can survive. So there are so many ways in which women suffer, and we're not even talking about the health impact, because of erosion of water, tidal wave or tidal floods in the coastal areas, for example. A lot of the roads are immersed, and that makes the women have to they have no access to like public health or other public facilities. And often this impact women, for example, who are pregnant, and they don't have any access to health facilities and health services. And yes, so the impact is so multi-layered. And so if we look at climate crisis, we really should see it as also its gender dimension in that sense. So I'm going to start from there.
Okay, and the list goes on.
Yes.
Absolutely, right? So I'm gonna go to Mbak Asi. Half of the world's population are women and girls, right? Yet women are often being left out of the conversation about climate change. How can we make sure, in your point of view, how can we make sure women have a place on the discussion table for more inclusive climate policies, and how important is it to have these?
Yeah, it's very important. And how do we ensure that? I will take an example from my activities. So it's making it very practical example. So for instance, let's take example of me. I'm the team leader of climate change project per se.
Yeah.
In our project, we have, I think, 80% are females.
Oh, okay.
So we could start from there. And then to make sure that women's or females' voice are being included in the climate change discussion, what I always give advice, I mean, we are working with ASEAN member states. So we work with the government. And development is start, of course, by the government. We always encourage them to include them starting from the development of the planning. So short-term, long-term, medium development plan always include women in the discussion, starting from a very, very low level at the village level, going through the district level, the city level, province, and then to the state level. need to include women, and then also to understand what are the issues. So, for instance, the issues that mentioned by Mbak Devi, thank you very much for outlining the impact that women and girls are suffering from climate change. So, for instance, one of the example is the access of waters. Let's say one area, women probably has to walk because majority in a very difficult country, sometimes women has to carry their kids walking for 3 kilometers to take for water.
Yeah.
So during the planning development stage, how we could make sure to reduce such a burden for the women. Or maybe there's a public toilet. We need to make a separation between female and then male. I mean, it sounds very simple, but if you go to a remote area, I've seen in Bangladesh and in Nepal, let's say in a global context, that in the middle of the night, girls so afraid to go out because the public toilet is very far, and then sometimes even it's still mixed between women and men.
Okay.
So it's discourage them to go out. So this very simple thing need to be included in the from a very start development plan. You create a building, you create a school, you need to make a separation between female and male, then that's already inclusive. And then if we would like to say inclusive in a broader term even, when we make a development plan, try to also include the disabled people, make a facilities that is friendly for disabled. So an understanding since beginning how we could address female challenge in the development context that is we are facing because of the climate crisis. So that's the first. Include them in the development discussion, encourage them, invite them on capacity buildings, and that is what our activity is doing. We will have a center of excellence in across ASEAN, which we will invite small, medium enterprise company, which I think most likely nowadays, the MSMEs, it involves lots of women, give them micro credit, small micro finance, which mostly also a housewife will start on that, and then they could build up economy for their family through this micro credit, small micro financing for sustainable financing. Yeah, so basically engage them since the beginning of the discussion, and then to understand what is their challenge. Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have something to add? But
I really think that often it's the simplest solution, like you were saying, making sure that the toilets are separated. But the thing is that you really have to put women in this position of decision making, because most of the time, especially in the patriarchal areas, communities or societies, women do not have a seat in this decision making, whether it's on a community level or in a state level or national level or global level. So it's really important to put women, because only women would know what women need, right?
yeah.
So I think that's the key to it.
Okay. So next question. This would be for both of you. When faced with an issue as big as the climate change and climate crisis, we often feel incapacitated. So how do you decide to do something tangible? And can you share a little bit to all of us here of your background, of course, and what you do and what motivates you to do so? Starting from...
Okay. To be honest, I get climate change anxiety.
Okay. All right.
So my anxiety is like quite at a high level. But it's really important because I come from the media background, and that's my work. And so I learned that something that's very discouraging is the fact that Indonesian readers or the young generation of Indonesians do not really care about climate issues. And so in the media, when it comes to climate crisis, related news, they don't get read as much as like other issues like lifestyle, politics, whatnot. So I find it's really like concerning, right? Because this is the people who are gonna live 50 years from now, not me. You know, I don't know how much longer that I have life. But for me, for one, I just channel it to my work. So what I do with my work before I go into my personal life is that I try to find a strategy to make to produce news and articles with my staff, with my editorial staff, that are readable, that are accessible for younger people, that make them feel like this is relatable to my life. That kind of shorten the distance between this big issue and their life, because a lot of the time people think it's like, oh, it's so global, we don't, but it's really their life. It's like their everyday. It's the floods that they face. It's the fish that are declining. It's the food. The price of food crops that are going to be like inflated so much. So I feel that I really need to connect this issue to regular people, to everyday people, especially younger people. So that's one. And so we strategize all the time at Magdalene, during our editorial meeting, during our annual meeting. We think about how do we present this climate crisis issues to our readers. That's one. And then for me personally, I have tried to live a more moderate life. I really try to cut down on consumption. Like, even I get lazy. I try to cook when I'm at home, but I get lazy too. So I would be thinking of getting like G food, whatever it is. And I'm thinking like, okay, on the one hand, I do like to give livelihood also to people who do this, but I also think about how much of the waste, when you order something. So even when I do that, I'm thinking of, okay, I'm gonna order something that produces less waste, for example. Or better yet, I'll just go and get a takeout, or or I cook myself. That's one. And then I also think that sometimes we focus so much on getting new things, on buying, on following trends, fashion, and I think that is so much. We create so much needs and demands that end up in the land waste.
Yeah.
And so I think about like, how do I cut into consumption and things like that. And the other thing is that I also think about how do I get informed, and how do I think this is important for everybody, is like to always stay informed of the latest issues, especially relating to that can have impact to climate, even politics. It doesn't always have to be like science issues, science related issues, but it's like politics, everyday politics. For example, like your makan gratis, for example. How does it affect your waste management, for example? And how much need would that, and the whole supply chain, things like that. So keep yourself informed and be critical. Stay critical. Make people accountable. That people meaning government, the private sector, community, everyone. Even when you say your friends, like buying something that has like 50, 60 different layers of plastic that is not necessary, maybe just call out once in a while. It's like, hey, maybe it's better if you just go to the store and buy it instead of, what I'm saying? So things like that, I think, making people accountable for what they do. But without making you look like a jerk, of course. You don't want to be socially outcast.
Yeah. You don't want to be the public enemy, right? How about you?
I think I'm by design is an environmentalist.
Okay.
So I'm a bachelor on environmental. I have master on climate change. So I always work on environmental background. My husband worked as in Dinas Lingkungan Hidup. He managed waste management of Jakarta. Just everyone to be aware, Jakarta produces 8,000 tons of waste per day.
Ooh.
That is per day. So yeah, me and my husband, we are very much on environmentalists.
Yeah.
What I would like to promote engagement on climate change is just a very simple. It's just to improve our quality of life. That's it. Because I work at the global level. We work at the regional level. I've seen so many things. But at the end, when we explain to the local people, sometimes when we say climate change, it's just too global. They think that this is probably not the words for us because it's too far. So the way that I explain to them is, this is actually to increase our standard livelihood. For instance, who wants to live in the flood? Why do we want to pay more cost on health? I mean, we got malaria, we got if we have flood, you get to a hospital, you cannot go to school, you cannot go to the office. Why would we want to suffer and then pay more costs when we could actually do something better if we have more concern on environment, on climate change? So put it back to the very day to day, to the root. Like, it doesn't have to be far abroad, like, oh, we need to reduce emissions, because that's language is too far for them. Just very simple. If we manage to clean our neighborhood, we will not have flood, we stay healthy, the environment will be a lot more greener, cleaner environment. It's such a nice livelihood. So just when I promote climate change and then my work on environmental, I just keep it very basic to the day-to-day life, and then make them realize. When I talk with the local government, to the state government, always take them on the cost-benefit analysis. If you don't do this, you will pay even much more. You need to pay much more costs on the destruction. Let's say if you have a coastal erosion, if you have floods, so many buildings get destroyed.
The damage.
And then the damage costs will be much more higher compared to if you are doing something on the climate change. So take that on a very, very core basis. For the government, once they see the monetary value, and then that's where they finally, yes, we need to do something.
Okay, so the key is
Make it very close with your real life day to day, to make them aware what will be the implication.
Increase the concern and also increase the action.
Yes,
Of course,
yes.
right?
Awareness.
Starting from baby steps. All right. So, before we end this session, aku ingin membuka sesi tanya jawab. Are there any questions from you guys? If there's none, maybe Mbak Devi and also Mbak Asi can share your Instagram account so they can reach you out further on social media.
I don't have social media.
Oh, okay. Well, perhaps after this, you can have small talk, right? Okay. How about you?
You guys can follow Magdalene ID, so MAGDALENE ID. It's on Instagram, Facebook, X, and all the others.
All right, Magdalene, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Boleh tepuk tangannya dong untuk talk show program kita pada hari ini. Boleh aku minta berdiri di sini untuk foto bersama terlebih dahulu ya. Berdua saja, biar kayak pitu. Silahkan. 3, 2, 1. Sekali lagi. 3, 2, 1. Oke. Terima kasih.